Russian individuals and companies for allegedly supporting North Korea's nuclear program. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says Washington has found it unacceptable for individuals and companies in China, Russia, and elsewhere to enable North Korea to generate income used to develop weapons of mass destruction and destabilize the Pacific region. The targeted entities and individuals are also accused of trading in North Korean energy sector and acting as a conduit to the international financial system. Crossing over to New York, joined by Professor of City University of New York, Daniel Shaw. Thanks so much for being with us. What do you make of these added sanctions now against Chinese and Russian companies and individuals at this time?
Well, the United States is again in complete violation of every existing international law. They look upon the United Nations and all of the covenants on countries' supposed sovereignty really as a plaything, as paper law. It's something that they've never respected, yet they expect other countries to respect the sovereignty of other countries. If Russia or Iran or any country were to act in such an aggressive way, waging an economic, diplomatic, media, and military war against North Korea or against any country, surely there would be the harshest repercussions for that country. So what we see in place is an incredible double standard.
What needs to be done, Daniel, to change this around? I mean, we continually talk about these double standards. We continue to see whether they're using sanctions or in certain situations, no-fly zones, always trying to pressure different governments. What can be done to change this reality that we're seeing more and more often now by the United States?
Well, the change has to come from within the belly of the beast, as it were. We know that the U.S. Congress represents the billionaires. It represents the interests of the generals and the warmongers. So we need a People's Congress of resistance, maximum unity among all progressive forces here in the U.S. We saw recently a vote that came to both houses of Congress, where both the Senate and the House of Representatives overwhelmingly voted for a new regime of sanctions against Iran, against Russia, against the DPRK, with Paul Ryan actually bragging about just how intense these sanctions were. So the change will never come from on high. It'll come from below.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us out of New York, Daniel Shaw, Professor.
The stories this summer, Moscow and Beijing have warned the United States over the recent sanctions targeting Russian and Chinese individuals and entities for allegedly doing business with North Korea. Russia says it is working on a response to the US, saying the language of sanctions is unacceptable to Moscow. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov says the sanctions will only make it more difficult to work out a real solution to the existing problems. Beijing has...
And the joint military exercises triggered the typical heated response from North Korea. Pyongyang's state-run media said on Monday that the drills were part of a plan by the U.S. and South Korea's, quote, puppet regime to launch a preemptive nuclear strike on the North. It added that the situation on the Korean Peninsula was being thrown into further uncertainty due to Washington's, quote, warmongering. It also fired off a cryptic warning saying the U.S. and its partners would witness the consequences of the fire they have ignited.
The Pentagon has prepared a specific strike plan for a preemptive attack on North Korea should the president order one. Key to that plan, two senior military officials and two senior retired officers tell us the battle-tested B-1 bomber, seen here in a military video, training for such a mission. The B-1, recently updated, has been a workhorse in Afghanistan and Iraq. Since the end of May, the B-1s have accelerated their training, conducting 11 practice runs, including one on Monday. 6 B-1s are positioned in Guam. They are not nuclear capable. Here's what they're training for. Pairs of B-1s, supported overhead by satellites and drones, surrounded by fighter jets, as well as refueling and electronic warfare planes, have flown round trips, refueling multiple times, to practice what a real operation against North Korean missile sites might look like. The highly sophisticated strike package is designed to be largely invisible, to facilitate a sneak attack. The targets, multiple sources say, approximately 24 North Korean missile launch sites and support facilities, which intelligence officials tell NBC News they feel confident they have accurately identified. The B-1s can carry a mix of weapons, as many as 168 bombs, or more likely, the new JASSM-ER, a highly accurate missile that can be fired hundreds of miles outside North Korean airspace.
Of all the military options you could consider, this would be one of the 2 or 3 that would be at least have a possibility of not escalating the situation. A single long-range strike against the nuclear program, a cyber offensive would be the second. Those are the only 2 military options that ought to be in serious consideration.
Similarly, on the diplomatic front, I am pleased to see that the regime in Pyongyang has certainly demonstrated some level of restraint that we've not seen in the past. We hope that this is the beginning of this signal that we've been looking for, that they are ready to restrain their level of tensions, they're ready to restrain their provocative acts, and that perhaps we are seeing our pathway to sometime in the near future having some dialogue.
On the same day, it basically says to the United States, stop these drills with South Korea. It airs a propaganda video on a state-controlled website, which is part of the official North Korean news agency, showing U.S. senior officials dying in a sea of fire with this quote: "All North Korea needs to do is place its hand on a button and press it when the right time comes. The U.S. will live in fear and anxiety the whole time." So this is a country that wants to be accepted as a nuclear power when the number one rule is you don't make idle threats, which explains why the U.S. is basically this debate that's going on in the administration and around the world. Is it too late to stop North Korea from developing a nuclear strike capability? And if not, how do you contain the threat? The U.S. is pursuing this dual track: stop your nuclear program and we'll talk diplomacy, while also preparing for conflict.
We have had the responsibility of providing military options to our national leaders. And exercises are a way of making sure that the option is a ready option. It's a capable option. And that's what really underpins deterrence.
So the war games last until the 31st and include some civil defense drills. Otherwise, most of the exercise is a computer simulation of different war scenarios, including a missile defense system designed to knock out as many North Korean nukes as possible.
All I can say is I'm very confident with our missile defense capabilities. Our missile defense capabilities that are deployed both in Alaska and in California have the ability to intercept any threat against the United States. I'm also very confident about the capabilities that we've deployed here in the theater.
The annual combined military exercises between Seoul and Washington is well underway. The drills, designed to ensure the allies are fully prepared to defend against North Korea's evolving threats, will run through the end of the month. And with North Korea ratcheting up its usual rhetoric against the drills, President Moon Jae-in had some strong words for the Kim Jong-un regime. He said the annual joint war games should not be used as a pretext for any further provocation.
Full readiness against any possible provocation, ordered South Korean President Moon Jae-in to his military as they launched their annual joint exercises with the U.S. on Monday. Speaking to his cabinet on the first day of the Ulchi Freedom Garden drills, the South's commander-in-chief also made clear the nature of the joint drills, which North Korea has long denounced as a war rehearsal to invade Pyongyang.
이번 을지 훈련은 우리 국민의 생명과 안전을 보호하기 위한 민관군의 방어 태세를 점검하기 위한 것입니다. 방어적 성격의 연례적인 훈련이며 북한은 평화를 지키기 위한 우리의 노력을 왜곡해서는 안 될 것이며 이를 빌미로 상황을 악화시키는 도발적인 행동을 해서도 안 될 것입니다.
President Moon called out on the North leadership, saying it's in fact Pyongyang's continued provocations that make the Seoul Washington joint drills necessary. The Liberal leader did, however, reaffirm that the door to dialogue for peaceful resolution remains wide open should the isolated regime choose to take that path.
북한이 용기 있는 선택을 한다면 한반도를 둘러싼 군사적 대립이 완화되고 우리 스스로 한반도 평화를 지켜낼 수 있으며 국제사회와 협력하여 안정과 번영의 미래를 가져올 수 있을 것입니다.
Early in the morning, the president chaired a meeting of his National Security Council as Seoul and Washington forged ahead their first large-scale military exercise since North Korea successfully flight-tested 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles in July. President Moon ordered the two militaries to remain on high alert and vigorously strike back in the event of any hostile action by Pyongyang.
The plan, it said, is set to be finalized and reported to Kim Jong-un by mid-August. The statement also slammed recent comments made by US President Donald Trump. Pyongyang called Trump's threats of fire and fury a load of nonsense, saying that he failed to grasp the gravity of the situation. It added that sound dialogue is not possible with such a guy bereft of reason, and that only absolute force can work on him. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, meanwhile, have issued a strong response to Pyongyang's threat towards Guam and other recent threats to South Korea and the US. They said it's a serious challenge to the Korean people and the South Korea-US alliance and warned the regime against carrying out any action.
If North Korea ignores our warning and carries out this provocation, they will face strong and firm punishment from our military and the South Korean-US alliance.
South Korea's presidential office of Changwade also announced that it would hold an emergency meeting of the National Security Council Thursday afternoon to discuss North Korea's recent threats.
Now, earlier today, I had an opportunity to speak with the Deputy Assistant to the President, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, welcome to Hannity. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Am I outlining this right? There are no good answers, and this is a far more dire, difficult situation than a lot of people are really realizing here.
You showed the clip with Tim Rossett from almost 20 years ago with the president. He had it right back then. He had it right today. The fact is, when good men do nothing, evil triumphs. It's not the people of Korea that are the problem. It is the regime. That is an evil, evil regime. As bad as anything we know from the Soviet Union, that nation is a pariah. That nation is in flagrant breach of international laws with regards to nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. But this is when the appeasement ends, Sean. This nation, this White House, this president will no longer put up with appeasement.
You know, Dr. Gorka, I've analyzed this as closely as I can under a best-case scenario. We had a very important vote over the weekend, and the UN Security Council, 15-0. Let's say all of those nations come together, our allies in Israel, even China, even Russia, even all our Western European allies. And we have to take these sites out because they're a clear and present danger to the entire world. Okay. Militarily, what do we have? We will incinerate North Korea. We run the risk of nuclear fallout. And then what if he fires, if we don't get it done fast enough, into South Korea, Guam, or Japan, or